I was always super interested in oceans, and I was really inspired actually by my uncle, who volunteered at a marine mammal stranding center. I guess there's just a lot of mystery for me about the ocean. It's definitely a place that's inaccessible to most people. When I was in undergrad, studying marine science and biology, I was most interested in like deep sea creatures and sharks and other creatures or other parts of the ecosystem that are sort of maybe misunderstood or less well understood. After I graduated from my undergraduate degree, I did some fisheries observing, and I was out on Gulf shrimp boats and longline boats. We were collecting a lot of data on bycatch in particular. I got super interested in the way that humans use scientific information and the way that it influences how we interact with our environment. There's a tension, especially in the sciences, between really narrowly focusing and specializing on something, and I think that that's sort of the drive that people have. Like, that's what people expect, is that if you're going to go into sciences that you have, very specialized interests and a research project and a master's and a PhD on something very specialized. And I've never felt like I was able to do that. I'm sort of a systems level thinker, I guess you'd call it. And I am just so interested in every aspect of ocean and just general environmental issues and concerns. By extension, social justice concerns and environmental justice concerns. The biggest hurdle for me was fighting all the people who were telling me to specialize in something and really trying to find this niche for myself where I can focus on, or I can work on lots of different issues. I find that my undergraduate degree, which was a dual degree in marine science and biology, really helps me interface and sort of translate more the science to policy aspect of things. I would say probably the most important part of my work is helping scientists create policy-relevant research projects or research ideas and formulating like what kind of information would be most useful from the perspective of a policymaker, a decision maker, a lawmaker. And that's sort of on the front end of projects, and then on the back end it's helping translate whatever the results are into some meaningful sound bites and distilling what those findings are for the purposes of what does this mean for creating new laws or implementing the existing laws that we have. I am really driven by balancing different perspectives and wanting to have good outcomes for everybody. So as opposed to being a really strong advocate for any one particular value judgment or viewpoint, I really like to try to come in and try to balance things as much as possible. Another of my favorite projects has been my work on the public trust doctrine and coastal adaptation in California, which has focused around the state's adaptation efforts to make sure that we're protecting public access and public recreation and conservation values along the shoreline in light of sea level rise. The reason why that's been my most exciting project, or one of my favorite projects, is because I've really been able to tangibly see how my work is actually making an impact with policymakers and decision makers at the state level. I've had the opportunity to present to some of the state agencies and commissions that are charged with making decisions about how we use lands in the coastal zone. And they have been really engaged and interested, and they recognize the issue that I've been working on as something that they really need to address soon. I really like playing soccer and ultimate frisbee, just any like athletic sports, going hiking, going backpacking. The east side of the Sierras, where it's like really high granite country with glacial lakes, it's just like, you can't beat it. It's literally like the most incredible place. I like to play with my dog, take pictures of my dog, post them on Instagram. Before I started law school, I moved to the West Coast just like on a whim, and I applied for one job in Seattle and one job in Portland, and I decided whichever one I got, that's where I would live, either Seattle or Portland. And I got the job in Portland, and I did that job, and I was an environmental consultant, so I was going to these factories and facilities and like doing chemical inventories. And one of my clients was Unilever, which owns like a ton of ice cream companies like Good Humor and Mrs. Fields Chipwiches and Ben & Jerry's and stuff like that. So I got to do all these big factory tours and worked in all these ice cream factories. And they are so happy. Like, it's exactly what you'd expect. The people who work there are so happy, and the whole place smells like ice cream. There's a lot of times when the labels get all messed up, and so and they just like can't sell them, and so they just have a big freezer full of all these different ice creams in the break room for all the employees. And they're sick of it. They don't want any more ice cream. So they used to give me all this ice cream. And one time these people gave me like a 32 pack of the little tiny 4-ounce cups of Ben & Jerry's. And it was just the most incredible day of my life. I would say to people coming out of a science undergrad, meet people who have interesting jobs, which can be hard, but seek out people that have interesting jobs and really think a lot about what your strengths are. If you're really good in the lab, maybe you want to be, that kind of a scientist. If you're really good at communicating with people and talking about the research that other people do, then maybe you want to be a communicator, a science communicator. If you're really good at thinking about how science can inform, like our human interactions with the environment, and think about, becoming a conservation biologist or a policy wonk or an attorney or something like that. The world is your oyster with a science undergraduate degree, which is both really difficult because you don't know where to go with it, and really a blessing because I think that it's never a bad experience to have, a science undergrad.